Okay. Hey, this is Zac.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exoterra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exoterra caging here at Metazotics, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exoterra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exoterra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. As always, Zac's here with my good buddy Clint. Clint's looking sharp today because we got new webcams. So there you go.
4K, baby.
Yep, there's a little bit of an upgrade. My webcam is on my counter because I saw it about a minute before we were supposed to come down here. So I'll look sharp next week. So there you go.
Well, I was showing Zac, we're a couple of Neanderthals. We really, all this technology we're not good with. And I was like, hey, look at this. My webcam foggles me everywhere I go. It's so cool.
Yes, that's way too fancy for us.
I'm telling you.
Anyway, so before I go any further, tonight's episode's one that I know people have wanted. I know I wanted it. I feel like tonight we can finally say we are completing Milksnakes. Because we had David Deem on doing kind of North American milks. We had Kayla on doing Hondurensis. We had Cole on doing Gentilis. And now we have Aaron Beyer on to do Latin American milks. So if you're a milksnake aficionado, this is one that's absolutely for you. But before we bring on Aaron and talk all things tropical Lampropeltis, we have some updates. So I'm going to start. The last episode during this part of the show, I had mentioned that my son and I were going to go to Arizona for his graduation trip. And the focus of the trip was lizards, which was my first time ever doing a dedicated lizard herping trip. And we found lizards. It was a bit more of a slog than I thought it was going to be. I'm very happy the focus was lizards. We only found a total of 3 snakes, but 2 of the 3 are super important ones because everybody that listens to the show and listens to my trials and tribulations when it comes to freaking sidewinders knows that I have gone many times to places where people are like, oh, yeah, you're definitely going to find a sidewinder, and literally find everything but sidewinders. And I can now say, thank you, Borrega. Actually, thank you, Octilio Wells. I now have sidewinders on my life list. The very first night, we got a big adult female crossing the road, watching that thing sidewind in the sand with the wind whipping at 30 miles an hour. And Colin jumping around as the thing was sidewinding towards him is something that I will never forget. But yeah, our trip was basically led from afar by Jordan Parrott, former guest, who, as you all know, spent many nights in Anza Borrega State Park with his dad. And so I reached out to him because there's several Baja lizards that make it in. So Colin and I flew into San Diego, went to Anza Borrega, and then promptly the most bizarre thing on earth happened that I never in a million years thought I would say this. A cold front hit. And so it took like until 1 PM to get to 90 in the desert. Meanwhile, those of us that are from the East, even though I wasn't in the East, know that last week was literal 7th circle of hell, heat wave, humidity. If you're Clinton eye size, you just basically walk outside and instant swamp ass. Like, I avoided that, which was kind of nice, but I wish that we would have had that heat. So we had to go many places to find lizards, but unfortunately, Anza Borrega was a little rough. We ended up pivoting out of there, went up to Joshua Tree, and our main target was Crotophytus because Colin's always wanted to see those. And we had the most anticlimactic target found moment maybe of my herping career because we saw a lizard at about 35, 40 yards up on a rock. To Colin's credit, he said, I think that's a Great Basin or desert, collared lizard. And I said, I don't know, but it doesn't quite look right. And then right when I took a step, everything came into focus, and it was absolutely that. So our first collared was kind of like Yay. Which was a little bit of a letdown. Now, we walked down the path or the trail, and we did get a Gambelia, which is a long-nosed leopard lizard, which another crotophytid. We were beyond stoked to find one of those. And that little guy did not disappoint. He was up on a rock. He flushed and went into a bush, and then I went to get him out of the bush, and he actually like ran up and was between my legs, just standing there. So we got good looks at that, and then all the usual suspects. But we went back after that to find the Baja collared lizards again. The weather was just crazy. I'm certain there was one present, but we had to go from Anza to Tucson, so we drove like the 6 hours. And on Wednesday, Tucson has basically a couple places where you can find crotophytis, but there's one, I think it's called Blackett's or Blanchett's Trail in one of the canyons there. Everybody goes to it. Starts with a P, Pelicino Canyon, something like that. And I knew that the hike was brutal. Now, we come from the land of hills, so we climb hills all the time. So I told Colin, like, we're going to climb this mountain. We're going to get this damn lizard. But we're going to have to get up at 4:30. We're going to have to get on the mountain by 4:45. We're going to have to get up there by 7. We're going to have an hour and a half to look. And then we got to get down off it because our Eastern Hoopy asses are going to cook if we're out there at like 11. And so that's exactly what we did. And we got up to the top of the mountain. This wonderful man, by the way, people in Tucson built different. Everybody that was up was like 70 or older. And here we are, my kid's 17, I'm 47, and we were getting lapped by these 70-year-olds going up this damn mountain. It was crazy. But we got all the way up, thought we found the damn lizard, and it ended up being just a desert spiny lizard out at a distance. So Colin had a little bit of a crack out at that point, given the amount of effort we had put in to find these common lizards. And I told him, like, bud, this is my greatest dad moment ever, by the way. I told him, like, we don't quit. We still have to walk down this mountain. Like, let's gather our thoughts. We're in it to win it, right? And, he's like, yeah. And so we're walking down the trail. Admittedly, I was starting to think, shit, we may not get this thing. And I turned around to say, are you all right? Because we were starting down. And I turned around, and this will be etched in my brain when I'm 100 years old, if I live that long. And in the path, not up on the mountain, not up on a rock, not like, far, like right in the path was our Eastern collared lizard. And I know people are listening to this and they're thinking, you had to work that hard for a collared? Yeah, we did. And I'm very happy that we did, because Colin lost his mind, and this thing was ballsy. Bold is the scientific word. I prefer ballsy. He didn't leave the rocks, so we got to spend 25 minutes. We were still up at altitude too. Well, I say altitude. We were up around 4,000 feet. But Colin went down to get a picture, and the lizard like jumped up, grabbed a grasshopper, landed, and then it ran back to the rock where Colin was and ate it. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm dad today. There's no dad better than this dad for this 2-minute period of time. And then, we relaxed for the rest of the trip. But we got some other lizards thanks to guests we've had on the show. Kevin Pollock, thank you, bud. He gave us a site on the way from Anza Borrega to Tucson where he had seen desert iguanas. And we got desert iguanas. It was 112 or 13 degrees, but we got desert iguanas. So that was cool. And then Christian Dietrich, who was on our field herping and keeping episode with Christian. He now lives in Tucson. So we met up with Christian, and I got to herp Ruby Road. And those of you who know Arizona know that road. That's a real important road. He took us in a canyon, which was super cool. We added Phrynosoma, horn lizards, regal horn lizards to our list with Christian. But it was just kind of nice for me to be able to like sit in the passenger seat instead of making all the decisions and doing all that kind of stuff. And Christian is like the absolute one of the best herpers I've ever met in my life. It was pretty awesome. Saw lots of border control agents. We were walking in this canyon. This was fun. And later found out, we think it's the canyon that the jaguars live in, if you know what canyon that is. And when we pull up, there's like there were 4 border patrol cars in the parking lot. And we're walking in, and Christian just kind of nonchalantly goes, yeah, this is one of the heaviest human trafficking canyons in the country. And then he's pointing out all the, like, this is where they store their water bottles. And then we looked up and there's their water bottles. And this is where they put the shoes that leave no footprints behind. And there's the shoes. And I was like, wow, my kid and I are here. This is great. Can't wait to tell his mom. But we're like in 2 minutes and a freaking border patrol agent just pops out of the forest. Like, so, those are memories. I told Colin it's the voyage, sometime not the destination. Just think about all the things that happened on this trip that would never happen in Wheeling, West Virginia. But yeah, overall it was a success. And if you helped us, thank you. But we had a really good time. The third snake, in case you're curious, didn't get hands on it. We were leaving Anza-Borrega, going up through Yanzi Pass, if you know where that is. And it was beautiful. I forget the subspecies name, but the pink coach whips that are like, and a big one too, about a 4.5, 5 footer going across the road. So we stopped, let him cross, got a really good look at him, and then kept on going. So, yep. Really, really hope monsoons hit for IHS because that's why snake numbers were low. But we herped. I mean, we road cruised every night. Now, we had lots of things working against us. Some people don't think this works against you. It was a full moon. When we were in Anza-Borrega, the biggest issue wasn't just the cold. We had a 25, 30 mile an hour sustained wind. If you're a cold-blooded animal and you want to lose body heat very quickly, just stand out in wind. So, anywho, but no, overall success. I tallied the list, and I think we ended up with just around 21 species by the end of the trip. So,
not bad at all.
Yeah,
not bad at all.
Good.
So,
all right, so that's my update. Oh, and things are hatching, but I don't know what's hatching. I just have been told things are hatching, so that's where I'm at.
Well, we've got a lot of that going on out here too. I mean, I think Corey could probably correct me, somewhere around 800 eggs at this point. And, we've got tons of things hatching. There's been all kinds of ball pythons. Now we've got colubrids starting to pop out. We've had like Lucy Texas rats, NBKs, cockeye, poulture. I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff. Cool surprise today. We had a boa litter pop out. So that I really wasn't even expecting it. But yeah, we've got that going. So that was really cool. Cause I mean, as we always say for both of us, if it wasn't colubrids, it would be boas, and so that's
there's
really,
boas in this room right now. So
yeah. And I mean, baby boas are so good looking and there's such variety and, single litter. So, really, that's really cool. Couple, I guess, just side notes as far as Metazotics as a company, it's been a long time coming, and finally we have our new sign on top of the roof. So, yeah, we feel like a big boy company now. You know what I mean? We feel legitimate. So we got that. We got our new awnings out and everything. So I mean, it's really, really looking good. Out, from it was finally time to make the outside look like the inside. You know what I mean? And so that's pretty nice. There's been really, really neat things happening too. So last week was Anna's last week with us, our 4 leader. Love Anna. Anna's been with us nearly 4 years. She was, first person who came on. She's now going to finish her degree to go into research and conservation, which we mentioned before. So now that has been finalized, with her exit, all the other movement that we had talked about on previous episodes with different personnel is now locked in and rolling. Still looking at bringing another 1 to 2 people on board. So Wendy's working through that and deciding who's going to be the right fit for what we have available. So that's happening. A few things too that I think are kind of neat. So we got, I can't remember if this was the last episode I mentioned this or if it happened in between, but we got some black Jansenii in.
Yeah, that was last episode.
Okay, so last episode, unfortunately, one of them didn't make it. The kind of thinner of the two that didn't eat, and it's only been a matter of weeks that we've had them in. So that one just passed, I think, yesterday. The other one's doing fantastic, which to me, I'm like, I can accept those odds so far.
Yeah.
Because it's, as we said, that's one of the things where we're kind of getting our feet more and more wet with is some of the imports. And, our mentality on these is we're not importing just to import. It's not about cheap animals. It's not, You're not going to see us importing tokay geckos. You're not going to, it's not like that.
Yeah.
But we are looking to bring in things that either are not here in the States or are so limited in the States that more bloodlines are still needed. More people need to continue to work with them. And I think Black Gents and I are one of those that we do still need more people to get their hands on specimens to, keep that going. With that being said, we're also, we've been doing our best to empty our quarantine area, meaning, trying to get, once things are through, get those out like normal, but try not to bring any more in preparation for our actual first importation that's taking place next week. It's they're supposed to get stateside. That was with, of course, Jared Greer from the KRE, Kentucky Reptile Expo. We kind of are going in on that together. So I'm going to get to see Jared's facility. I'm going to go out there towards the end of next week to pick these guys up. And thank you, Jared, for not only receiving all these imports, but Jared is going to take them all, get them hydrated, because I wanted to do that prior to making the trip back to Metazotics with them. So, and all these species are going to be species that are either not in the U.S. or you may see one clutch of captive bred kind of thing, a year over here. So, so very, very low quantities, and pretty excited to be working with some new things. So that's going on. The other big piece for Metazotics, and I don't want to get ahead of myself and for anyone to think this is happening overnight. But one of the things I am doing right now is kind of starting a property search. I'm searching 3 things at the same time to decide which direction we're going to go. There's 2 cities that we're looking at. Okay, if we're going to open the next store, which one of these makes sense to go in first? But we're also looking at properties where we could not only build a rodent and insect facility now, but have room to expand breeding facility, have additional buildings built, in the future. So we want the property to be the right size. But unfortunately, everybody is really, really proud of their properties right now. I mean, it's stupid expensive on what they're wanting, so, but that is where we're at as far as a company, because, just a big thank you to all of our customers. Business has been going well, so we want to make sure that we continue to deliver what we want to deliver. So
cool.
That's what we have over at Metazotics. But I got to do something last week that I think you probably want me to go into now. Yeah. So let's have a Colubrid Fest update. So Mickey came into town, and he and I, as well as Rachel, who's part of the Show Me team, the 3 of us went over and checked out the venue. It's a venue that I was somewhat familiar with. There used to be reptile shows in this venue previously. However, it was a very small show back then. And in fact, the room that the show was in is actually the room our talks will be in, to give you kind of an example. So, and it was good that we went over there because we did get to figure out a lot of things, and I want to share some of those with everybody now. So one change up I think we're going to have is for the talks this year, we're going to have rounded tables. So you actually will have a table to sit at, during the presentations. That way, if you want to take notes or whatever, have your drink on a table. I think it's going to be a much more comfortable environment that way. So, we had that one. We actually doubled the space. We looked at the room that the talks were going to be in and decided we have more people coming than what this is going to, kind of allow. So we went ahead and doubled that. So going there was the right call for us to be able to make that decision, as well as how that room will be laid out. Got to look at the room that the show will be in, and plenty of room in there, for the tables and, all that part. So that's good. For the vendors, load in, it's going to be pretty easy. So there is a loading area in the back of the building, and that would have to be worked, meaning all the vendors can't pull up to it at the same time. It's going to have to, 2 or 3 in, unload, pull out, 2 or 3 in, that kind of thing. But we can also come in from the front door as well if you've got lighter loads. But the good thing is if you're coming in through that back door entrance, it's real short. It's a short little, in one door, up a small hallway, maybe 20 feet, and then boom, you're in the room. So, load in should be pretty easy. Looking forward to that. We've got, as we've mentioned, there is a skywalk from the venue to the hotel that we have the Colubrid Fest block in. And Mickey has had more rooms added to that block. It should be under Colubrid Fest, but I think someone recently said that it was under Show Me whenever they went to do it. And so that was an error on the part of the hotel. But just in case, if you're still trying to book your hotel at that DoubleTree, try Colubrid Fest. If that doesn't work, try Show Me or Show Me Show, anything like that. They found it, once you just talked about what it was, they were able to find it. So, but all in, I think the facility is definitely going to work for what we're after. Looks like Max just said, Mickey said, Show Me on the tour video. So I think, yeah, that's what it was under. And it's real easy to get in and out of, right off of the Lloyd Expressway, boom, boom. That spot right there is nice. Downtown Evansville as a whole, once you start getting, it's like a lot of other downtown areas, you can get into some, less than pretty areas, but right there is good. And, hopefully you guys saw what I posted in the Colubrid Fest fan page that has all the things in Evansville, I say all the things, some of the things in Evansville to go look at and do. There's a few other things that we want to make sure that we point out. I'm going to save what I consider one of the best updates for last. Right now, the nominations for the Colubrid breeders and basically what do we call these now? Colubrid Best of. That's the word.
Awards.
Colubrid, yeah, Best of awards. The nominations are open, and whenever we posted this, we posted one way to nominate, but we're actually going to give you another. So first, if you are in the Colubrid Fest page on Facebook, you can go in and nominate for each one. Whoever and you can nominate as many people as you want for each category. It's not just a one nomination. Anybody you think needs to be looked at for that category, put it out there, please. We want as many nominations as possible. But we do realize that not all of our listeners or watchers are on Facebook or in Facebook groups or things like that. So you can also nominate for any of these Colubrid Best of by emailing us. And our email address is ccradiopodcast@gmail.com. That's ccradiopodcast@gmail.com. If you can't remember that, just go to Colubrid and colubroidradio.com, and you can go to our contact us and send it that way. Max, will you pop back again to the categories? I don't want to forget any. My old eyes are trying to read that. There's, if I can see it. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. All right. So we've got Colubrid Keeper Breeder Lifetime Achievement Award. That to us is the pinnacle award each year. So please get your nominations in for that one. Pop to the next one. Community Representative, Best Colubrid Community Representative. And each of these are going to have a description with them. So that way you have an idea on exactly what that particular category entails. Go ahead. Colubrid Personality of the Year. Go ahead. Most Innovative Colubrid Breeder. Okay. Best New Captive Colubrid Species Keeper. Rat Snake Breeder of the Year. Hognose Breeder of the Year. Lampropeltis Breeder of the Year. Pituophis Breeder of the Year. Best Large Colubrid Breeder of the Year. And that's large colubrids, not large as in big guys. Best Other Colubrid Breeder. And we're back to the Lifetime Achievement Award. You got it. So those are the categories. So we really, really are asking everyone, please either go on Facebook in that group or email us nominations We definitely want to make sure that people look, even if it's something that, you think, you know what, I don't know if this person will win because not enough people know them. It doesn't matter. There may be more people that know them than you think. And even if it doesn't win, being nominated and having your name up there with, some of these other stellar individuals is still an honor. So let's get these people recognized. And it's going to take all of you to do it. So let's make that happen. Then finally, the big one.
Yeah, let's do the big one.
Right, finally the big one. Okay, so we have decided there's going to be a nice little tweak for Colubrid Fest this year. It's hopefully going to encourage all of you to get your VIP tickets. So first, at the meet and greet, the Show Me team will be providing all the refreshments. So we'll have drinks, we'll have dinner is going to be provided, food, whatever kind of dinner they decide to go with that route. There will be a bar. I think it'll be a cash bar, so not that Mickey's going to get everybody drunk. You guys are going to have to do that yourselves. But
if you were 21.
That's right, if you're 21. But yes, there will be food provided on Friday. Then on Saturday, prior to the awards being presented, CCR is going to be providing dinner for everyone.
Yeah.
So we're going to foot the bill because we want your wallets nice and loose for that auction. Okay.
Yeah.
We want to definitely raise money for the conservation fund.
Yep.
And, we feel that we are so excited to have you guys out there that we want to feed you. So,
and we also were aware last year there were some issues in the previous year. The meals are all well and good, but you got to leave the venue, go get food, make sure it's done in the window of time, get your butts back. And we just want to make this as smooth for you and give you the most opportunity possible to geek out about snakes with other snake people. So this way, the only food that you are going to have to purchase, because I believe the hotel provides a breakfast if you get a hotel room, correct?
I don't know.
Okay,
sure.
we're not sure on that one, but the only thing you're gonna have to cover is lunch if you do the VIP pass, because we're gonna be covering the dinners for you. So there you go.
Yeah. So not a bad gig for a VIP ticket, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, VIP tickets for the entire weekend are like $65, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this dinner is $65, guys.
Yeah. So
let's be real.
Yeah. So definitely, please get in, share this with everyone. Pass that news along. I know it's just dinner. You're thinking, oh, it's dinner, but it for us, we were excited to do it. And I think that it's going to be a nice.
We can pay back to the community. So
absolutely, that's what it's all for. Is we want to thank the Colubrid community for all that you're doing for us. So get out there and let us feed you.
Yep.
But I think that's it. One more time, email us nominations if you're not on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, nominate.
Please nominate.
Yes, please and thank you.
Okay. Since you've got to do the big one with the market update, I'm going to do the science update.
Yes, sir.
So science update, this episode, as with all episodes, is brought to us by Rare Genetics, Inc. Use the coupon code CCR15 to get yourself a discount. You can use RGI to sex your snakes. You can use them to test for certain key morphs. And as always, you know what I'm going to say. Take those shed skins, send them in to RGI so that they can keep doing the awesome science. And if you want to know what they're doing and you missed last episode, we actually brought them on to give an update, and they just keep pushing, the science side of herpetoculture forward. And we are privileged and honored that they support CCR. Go for it.
Forgive me, guys. Forgive me, Zach. There was one Colubrid Fest thing. I don't know if we've stated this yet.
Pause.
It's very relevant for the VIP ticket.
Yeah.
We have decided that this year, on Friday, from 5 to 7,
yes,
we will allow purchasing.
Yeah.
So we may not have all the vendors there yet, but the vendors that are there will be set up. And from 5 to 7, whether it's vendors or VIPs, animals can be purchased on Friday evening. There's still no sales on Saturday.
None.
We're not budging on that. But just for those early birds and early arrivers, you can have a VIP purchasing window from 5 to 7 on Friday.
All right.
Sorry.
Back to science. Okay. So right before we left, and I talked about this last episode, I had finally finished the draft of the Eastern Hognose species account for the Hognose book. I'm going to be getting back into that book week after next. And the only one I got left is the Mexican hog. But in doing that, I read every flipping species account in every reptiles and amphibians of book known to man that I could get my hands on. In fact, that's not entirely true. I bought 2 before I left on my trip, and they arrived, and so I got to read those. But those are literally the only 2. I'm pushing 30 books, and I bought this book. It's part of a 3-book set. It's thick. Reptiles of Ohio. I just bought this when I saw it come across my feed. This is just snakes and maybe lizards, I think. Yeah, this is snakes, and this is just snakes.
Holy crap. I didn't know there were that many snakes
there
in Ohio.
You go. If you are in the Midwest or the Mid-Atlantic and you want to get a definitive guide that takes everything known about our favorite snakes, ringneck snake, garter snakes, hognose snakes, milk snakes, and some oddballs like fox snakes, copper belly water snakes, Cypodon, queen snakes, go to the Ohio Biological Survey, find this book, and buy it now. I can say something. I know one of the main editors of it, Greg Lips. He's one. We work with him with spotted turtles. This book here, The Reptiles of Ohio, the snakes version, has the single greatest chapter ever written on Eastern hognose snakes to date. It was so flipping detailed. I learned stuff, and by the time I got to this book, I had already read like 15 species accounts and got sick and tired of reading the same damn sentences over and over and over and over and over again. They didn't have a page limit. Now I know, because I'm writing another book, Crayfishes of West Virginia. Oftentimes you're told by your publisher your book's limited to X. These guys didn't have a page limit, so they got to basically go full nerd and put everything and anything they could think of in the book. It's freaking excellent. Absolutely excellent. I can't recommend this one enough. Now, I'm not really going to talk about what's in there because we don't have a lot of time. I'm just simply going to say, if you live in New England, the Mid-Atlantic, or the Midwest, all of our species are in here. While they obviously cover Ohio, they cover everything about your critter. So they do the systematics chapter in here, section on hogs in here. I thought that I had found everything and had it all outlined. I felt like a complete fool by the time I got done reading this thing. That's how thorough it is. It took them almost, I believe, over close to a decade to write. So they took their time. They did it well. Get yourself a copy of this. I see some people in the chat that live in the area I'm talking about. You need this book. So why do I love it? Get the book and find out. That's all I'm going to say.
Quick question. Do you know anywhere it's available?
I think you got to go to the Ohio Biological Survey, which is a website. Otherwise, peruse things like Abe Books. Maybe go to Amazon. It might. I don't think that they sold out on all their copies. And when you put all 3, the lizards and the turtles, and then the amphibian book, which is salamanders and frogs, when you got them all together, it's like this big. I have them all. You could kill a human with those 3 books.
You kill a human with one of those books. Thing was big.
So by all means, man. And I know I didn't talk much detail, but I wanted to give Clint the time. But at the same time, it's well worth it. I can't say enough about it. And it's a sleeper. No one talks about this book. I shouldn't say book, this series of books. So for the love of God, show them some love. They got my highest praise. By all means, go get it. That's all.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much, Zach. Now I've got to buy more books. Damn it. All right. Well, we will jump into the market update. As always, the market update is brought to you by the Show Me Marketplace and the Show Me Reptile Show. As we just discussed, Colubrid Fest wouldn't be taking place if it wasn't for the Show Me team. So please get on Marketplace, browse around, put some animals up for sale. as well as if there's a Show Me show anywhere near you, go in, support them, support those who support us. And by us, of course, we mean those of us in the colubrid community. So this is the first market update of the month, which means it's the big market update is what we call it, where we're going to go over some numbers, and we'll go ahead and pop that up right now. All right. So for those of you who are not able to see the screen currently, basically we're looking at ball pythons and total listings where we always start. And while the overall movement of the line graph for ball pythons and for the total is still following the same exact pattern that it has as far as, overall from a downward trend, from June to July, we see our first uptick, of the year. And in fact, when we go back and look, as predicted, it matches exactly as it did last year, where from the month of June, basically from June 1st to July 1st is when we see the first uptick. So, we know we're in hatchling season. It is underway for sure. I added a little bit of a twist to some of these numbers down here for us. So ball pythons, right now, there's 22,697 listed versus 31,514 the same month last year. That's a 28-point decrease from the number that were listed last year. Total listings are 35,698 versus 42,551. That's a 16-point decrease in total listings. So 28-point decrease in ball pythons, 16-point decrease in all listings shows us that the other markets are performing stronger than where they were last year, while ball pythons are continuing to kind of lessen their hold, which is a good thing in the sense of variety. Colubrids, just kind of jumping straight in, instead of going line by line with these, I will tell you basically every category of colubrid from June to July had an uptick, with the exception of, house snakes, I believe? No, garters. Garters, they went down just a little bit. And I think king snakes, no, what are those? Corn snakes, sorry. Barely, they're kind of flat. So for argument's sake, you can pretty much say all colubrids had a very, very small uptick or stayed pretty flat. And so we can look at market share. And this one, I know we say this every time we're looking at it, but it just continues to amaze me. So right now, market share is as follows. Ball pythons are now at 63%. That now is the lowest market share percentage we have seen for ball pythons since tracking this for 2 years now. Colubrids are up to 19%. Boas, 11%. Other pythons, 7%. As far as the colubrid market itself breaks down pretty much like what we've seen for a while. Hognose at 42%, corn snakes at 23%, king snakes at 13%, rat snakes at 8%, Pituophis at 5%, milk snakes and other colubrids are both tied at 4%, garters coming in at 1%, and hognose less than 1%, over the overall market. Some specific numbers, and again, this is always pretty interesting for me anyway. From June to July, ball pythons increased their count by 91 more listings. Their market share, however, decreased because of the increasing of all the others. So ball pythons lost 1.7 points of their market share. Other pythons, currently 2,385 listing. That is 358 more than last month, which ends up being a 0.8% increase in their market points for their market share. Boas, 3,855. That's an increase of 578 over last month. 1.3 points increased in their market share. And colubrids only increased 39, but it was an increase, first increase we've seen this so far this year. And they lost 0.5 point in market share, basically because we're looking at other pythons and boas really crept up there. All in, there was 1,066 more listings than a month ago. So the overall market grew 3.1 points. So pretty cool. Pitch opus, as far as listings, 332. Corn snakes, 1,526. Garters, 45. Hognose, 2,853. House snakes, 30. King snakes, 901. Milks, 285. Rat snakes, 534. And all others coming in at 257. All right, so some current trends and patterns. Temperature spikes have not slowed purchasing, but they need to be navigated. Meaning it's something where it doesn't seem that it's slowed down online sales at all, at least not from our perspective here. But obviously with the temperature spikes, you have to be cognizant of where you're shipping, not just where to, but what your temperatures are. So just be prepared and stay in constant communication with anybody who's bought from you. If you're only going to check once a week, because that's kind of what I do, meaning we look on Mondays and see if there's a window. If there's not, we're not going to continue looking for the rest of the week. But we explain that to our customers that every Monday is when we decide if we're going to be able to ship at any point that week. So just make sure to be cognizant and pay attention to that. We are now officially in hatchling season. As we saw, it's not only are they hatching, but they are getting their meals, and we're now having an increase in postings, and that will continue all the way until probably November. The product price increases that I've been talking about have taken effect as of July 1st for several major suppliers. So you will see a lot of products, and it's not major, but you're going to see them creep up. $1 here, $1 there, $3, $4, just depending on what it is. So don't be surprised when it all costs just a little bit more than it did a couple weeks ago. This is one I kind of wanted to mention. If you are a live prey feeder and you are not producing rodents yourself, this is the time of year where hoppers specifically will be in shorter supply. So you may have a little bit more difficulty getting live hoppers than normal or getting the quantities that you want. And all that is it plays off of the ball python hatchling season, because although most of the breeders that are wanting to do right by the ball pythons get them on rats, as soon as they can, because it's a heftier meal. Typically baby ball pythons start a lot easier on hoppers than they do rat pinks or pups, because that jerky motion that the hopper has. So you will see a huge amount of hoppers being purchased. We go through them like crazy now. Because of the individuals that breed ball pythons in our area. So I just kind of like to put that out there, that this is something to be, just think about if it's something you're going to absolutely have to have. Everything seems to be open to move. And what I mean by that is we are still seeing a large variety of animals that are, going home. And we're talking geckos. We're talking all species of snakes, the whole dynamic, across the board. Frogs. Nothing's really slowing down. Nothing's a dying market. It just, of course, seems to be where you have it stacked. And by stacked, here's what I wanted to share something else with you. I decided to kind of put together numbers for June, and just to give you an idea on where things are falling. So our colubrid sales in June, our average dollar sale for a colubrid was $226. That was a little bit lower than normal. I wouldn't say that, because really typically 250 is about the mark that we hit, but that's kind of 250 across the board with all snakes. So 226, just a little bit below that average. Our ball python average was 618. Now that's skewed, and so if you notice, I've got 285 in parentheses, and that's because there was a $4,000 ball python that sold. So that's obviously going to bump up that average. You know what I mean? So I would say with that backed out, the average ball python was selling for 285. And overall snakes, which are going to include all our boas, our other pythons, that average is about 352. So the boas and the other pythons obviously are a higher ticket, item compared to a lot of the more common species and more common ball pythons, as well as more common colubrids. So just I put those numbers out there simply so you have an idea on where the market is feeling comfortable right now, if that makes sense. Some 30 and 60-day advice and questions to ask, things to think about. I want to say it every time. Book your travel for Fest. Now it comes with dinner. So get booked and get out there. You're muted, buddy.
2 nights worth of dinner.
2 nights worth of dinner. That's right. Ensure you're stocked on phase packs for shipping because of possible hiccups. And again, these are things I mentioned last time, but with all of the hubs closing down, things like that, there's going to be a lot of shipping that is from home to home rather than hub to hub. So you have to think about longer travel times, more travel in the trucks, things like that. So the phase packs are going to be something that helps balance that temperature out much better than just a typical ice pack. Well, that's what we'll talk about for summer, typical ice packs. So make sure you have those. And as I said before, travel to new shows, even to scout before you vend, because shows continue to be very, very strong. Some new advice. If not already shipping and receiving without a hub, make plans now. All of the express hubs are going to go away. All FedEx Express hubs. It's all going to go to the ground. Some of them will let you do drop-offs. I just found that out today, that our local hub, ground hub, will let us drop off whenever all these changes take place, but they will not let you pick up. And unfortunately, the drop-off, we're talking that's like 25 minutes from our shop in a completely different direction. I mean, so it's not nearly as convenient. We'll do it when we need to, but basically you need to prepare for your shipping to go from your home or your business to whoever's home or business you are sending it to. The hubs are just probably not going to be much of an option anymore. Book shows early. I'm finding a larger number of shows are selling out of tables. So if it's a show you think you're interested in, get your table request and payment in early to make sure you don't, because a lot of times the shows previously, you could 2 weeks before, a week before, it was no problem to get tables. That's not the case in a lot of these strong shows anymore. And I don't even mean national shows. A lot of the strong regional shows, Indianapolis, you can't get a table in. I'll tell you that. So it's get it early. Okay, get it early. If you're not doing more shows, ensure you have ample holdback space for the summer, because as these shipping avenues continue to change, you're going to pause more on shipping because of hot temps. Where you're going to get a lot more nervous when it's not going to a hub and going to be there by 9 o'clock. And it's not until noon, 1, 2 o'clock that it's going to get to somebody's home. It's going to go through the absolute worst heat of the day on a truck. So with that in mind, there's going to be a lot more weeks that you're not shipping. So be prepared to have to hold animals a little bit longer, even if they sold. And so make sure you've got the space for that. Look into bulk shed tests from RGI. Okay. So this is something I learned that I didn't really put this piece together whenever we had talked to RGI about this before. So we know that they, give discounted rates on bulk shed testing, and it just depends on the number. And this is that part you would need to contact RGI on. But here's the cool thing I found out. So I got with Sean, one of the guys there at RGI, and I purchased a lot of sex sheds, shed testing, and ball python morph tests, because I've got a ton of ball pythons back there that I don't know what the heck they are, because they're 5, 6, 8, I don't know how many genes are in there. So I knew we were going to have to do some testing. And something cool about their bulk discount rates. So you get a certain number of tests, and let's say, okay, that number of tests gets you 20% off. It's a running total for the year, which means as you order more tests, when you cross the 30% threshold, what they do is they go back and give it as if you had 30% off the entire time. So you then have a credit that carries forward for the test that you had already paid for and used. And that goes all the way up to like 50%. So, I mean, that to me, I thought that was a heck of a deal, that as you continue to get more and more shed tests, as long as you get set up on the bulk shed testing with them, that it's retroactive. It's not, oh, if I'd have bought that many, 6 months ago. No, if you're there now, they're going to go back and credit you, as if you had been on that tier the entire time. And I thought that was really, really cool. We wanted to get some sex tests just for some of the more difficult to pop species that we can double check our females, make sure that we're going to send out the right thing. So I wanted to share that with everybody now that I have a better understanding of how that program works with them, because I thought it was really cool. So that is the market update. I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Good job, man.
Appreciate it.
We ready to bring on Aaron?
We are. As always, our guest segment is brought to you by ReptiChip. We utilize ReptiChip out here at Metazotics for anything that needs humidity, Asians, ball pythons, boas. Of course, Zac in the university out there utilizes it for all of their egg incubation. So it's a fantastic product. We appreciate ReptiChip, and we hope you guys do too.
And I'm proud of us because we didn't forget a single sponsor for once.
One more to go, but we'll get that
one more to go. But I'm proud of us up to this point. How about that?
That's right.
All right. Okay. So coming to the stage, we have Aaron Byer. So, how are you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We are doing well. We are happy to talk to you about Latin milks. As we said before the show, we've had on many Milksnake people in the past, and Kayla, David, Cole. Now we feel like we're kind of wrapping this all up with our heavy hitter milk people by having you on, and we've wanted to have you on really since the inception of the show, to be honest. So this is a special night for all of us in the CCR world. So thank you for coming on.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, cool. Well, the first question we ask everybody the first time they're on the show is how did you become the Latin milk guy? So has this been something you've done your whole life? Is this recent development? Just give us your background if you don't mind.
Okay, so I think like most people that are into snakes, I started off as a kid, really into snakes, spiders, scorpions, sharks, dinosaurs, all the cool stuff. What's not like other people is I was really afraid of snakes as a kid. I mean, really afraid of snakes. A lot of the people in my life, family members, friends of family, were kind of in the same boat. I use the term ignorant coward. I don't mean that derogatory, but I mean, it's the facts of the situation. I just didn't know any better, and really not many people I knew any better either. It wasn't until I really got into books. Books kind of saved everything for me.
Nice.
5th grade, I just happened to see in my classroom there was a book about snakes. Started reading it. Realized that snakes weren't all bad, aren't all dangerous. And then it just took off. It took off. I started getting every book I could possibly find, school library, public library, just went nuts with it. After a couple years of going down that path and begging my parents for a pet snake, I eventually finally got one. Got a little desert king snake from a local pet store. So it was my first snake, great first snake. Everyone should have a desert king.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate. The pet store that I got that snake from, really great people worked there. It was a little mom and pop shop, and I learned a lot from them. The owner had been working with snakes her whole life, so she kind of taught me everything. Through them, I got introduced to some other folks when the West Texas Herpetological Society was just getting started back in the 90s. It's kind of defunct now, but at the time, it was a pretty impressive group of people. So I had some early mentors as a kid that were very impressive, very knowledgeable people, very experienced people. So I just really kind of hit the ground running and became obsessed with all snakes. I had everything: garter snakes, king snakes, ball pythons, normals, back when people had normal ball pythons. I had a bunch of them. Jungle carpet pythons. I mean, I had coach whips, bull snakes, you name it. I had a little of everything. It wasn't until maybe about 15, 16 years ago, I got bit by the milk bug. I kind of became obsessed with milk snakes for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of layers to that onion. One, they're beautiful. I mean, I love the way they look. The red is fantastic. And I like that to do Milksnakes right, in my opinion, it comes with a little bit of detective work, a little bit of research. You don't just look at them, you figure them out. A lot of the milks that we have in the hobby, you start talking to keepers and breeders, researching line history, kind of going down this rabbit hole to understand what they really are. And I absolutely love that. I mean, I'm addicted to it. One of my favorite things is just shooting people messages or giving people phone calls, trying to track down information on these things. So that's kind of how I got, fully addicted to Milksnakes.
Gotcha. What was your first milk?
My first milk, funny enough, because I talk a lot of smack about them, was an albino Sinaloan, which isn't a thing. There are no albino Sinaloans. But at the time, I didn't know any better. That's what I bought. It looked fantastic in the pet store. It was a little pet store. I'm prior Air Force, so I was stationed in New Mexico for a while, and one of the bases I was stationed at. There was a little pet store. I saw this albino Sinaloan. It was gorgeous. Had to have it. And then a couple years go by, and I become a little more educated on them. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't even a thing. But that's what I started out with.
Okay. So obviously you start off with that. At what point did you have the moment that many of us have where you're just kind of driving in the car, taking a shower, walking down the street, and you're like, holy hell, I've got a lot of these things. Like, was it shortly thereafter the albino milk, or was it like, did you build the collection slowly? Did you do the boom and then back?
So
what drove the obsession with the Latin milk specifically?
So I built a very small collection quickly. I went from 1 to 25, 30 snakes right away. And I stayed right there for a long time. And it wasn't until I started figuring out that there's actually kind of this secret society, this secret demand for all this locale specific stuff with legitimate line history. You can trace it back to the founder stock, the animals that were collected. And, I kind of wanted to be part of that club. So that's where it really took off. The collection kind of exploded after that.
And what year was that, you think?
That was probably about 2014.
Okay, cool. That's right around when I got back in. So similar histories there. Okay. So would you say today? Oh, go ahead, Clint.
What were some of the, we know what you started with. What were the first few milk snake layers that were put in there? Kind of how did it start to expand?
Okay. So the first real milk snakes that I got was a pair of black milks. The San Antonio Zoo line I purchased from John Fraser.
Yeah, that's what I've got. Yeah.
I still have the receipt. I still have everything. I love those things. I love those. I think a good baby black milk, especially the San Antonio Zoo line, they just kind of have the Ferrari look to them before they start to change. That bright red, bright yellow. They're super nice looking. And of course, they're beautiful when they become black as well. But that's kind of what really got me going. And then I just started kind of experimenting with different things. It wasn't too long before I had Conant's milks. For a long time, I didn't realize that there were pure Hondurans in the hobby because I had heard for a couple of years that they didn't exist. And then when I found out that there were some, they were kind of hard to find at the time. Keepers and breeders have done a lot better in recent years of trying to get those into different people's hands. But when I found out you could get real ones, that just escalated things.
Gotcha. So it sounds like locality and the backstory on the snakes is just as important as the way they look, if not more. Is that a fair statement?
Probably more, because I think all milks look great, but if I'm getting a locale animal and someone can give me the full story, who they got it from, who that person got it from, who that person got it from, and then who collected them, I don't care what it looks like. It's just super cool.
Yeah. So this is a question I have because I like localities, but I'm not to the obsessive point yet. I see myself getting there soon, but I'm not there yet. When you get all this is the thing that always impresses the hell out of when I talk to people that are like you and this kind of vein of the hobby. How do you keep all this stuff straight? Like when you get this information, do you have like Word files you're dumping this into?
I do.
Or are you so deep to find it just stays up there? Like how do you actually keep the data straight? Because I can't do that. And
I kept it all.
Can.
I kept it all upstairs for a little while, but it got to where I couldn't do it anymore. So yeah, I've got Word files, Excel files, just lots of notes on pieces of paper. When I find like a new contact, someone that's been all over the place in Latin America, and they've seen everything firsthand, and I'm on the phone with them, I've got a piece of paper in front of me and I'm just writing like crazy, just everything they say. So yeah, I've got all types of notes for all of this stuff. So there's not a lot I can just kind of repeat right off the top of my head, but if you give me a few minutes, I've got a lot of cool data.
I was talking to a scientist who does field research with crayfish, and in our world, like when we're actually describing species, locality is everything. Like it's just as, and I mentioned that that you need to talk to some snake. Like we all need to be coached by the locality snake people. Like we might have the fancy degrees, but they're just better than us. Because the fact that you all can keep this stuff as straight as you do, like Chris Montross to this day, when he's like, yeah, I flipped this roll of carpet in Hendry County, 2.71 miles. It's not 2.7, it's 2.71 miles from the intersection of blah, blah, blah road. And I got this female and these two male, like that's insane. Like, so anyway.
So all that data is really cool, but then, reputation becomes part of it too, because, you have to trust these people.
Yes.
Some people are very easy to trust. They've got a fantastic reputation. The whole hobby knows that, they're on it. Sometimes there's a new guy that shows up, or there's a guy that kind of had a little bit of a rough patch. And so, figuring things out, and that's where the detective work and the research comes in. And I just love doing that.
Well, that's super cool.
Something that I think when you talk to, because there's those of us out here, and I'm going to say I fall in this category of when I would say locality keepers. I'm not a locality keeper. I have some locality animals. You know what I mean? It's not like my whole collection is locality, but those that I do have that are locality, I keep locality, that stay pure. And while I am to the point where I can recognize names, and I even like right now at this point, Alterna, I'm kind of proud of myself sometimes where even with their variability, I can look at one and think that looks Christmas Mountain. And then, probably 4 out of 5 times I'm right, when that's what I'm thinking I'm looking at. So a little proud of that piece. But for those that are true hardcore locality keepers, I'm always amazed with their knowledge of geography. I mean, while I can tell you Loma Alta, I can, do 77 and, Christmas Mountain and all these different localities of Alterna right now. If you put a map of Texas in front of me, I go, yeah, they're in there. You know what I mean? That's all that I know. I don't know the geography, of this. And so I'm always super impressed with how much further they take it than just, here's the look and the care of the animal, the understanding that locality keepers have of the area, what the area looks like, what makes them different than another locality, and so that's always, very, very impressive.
Yeah, I get super nerdy with it too. So I get a locale animal. I find where that's at on a map, and I screenshot it, I save it. And then I'm looking up, what is that elevation? What is the annual precipitation? What does the temperature look like throughout the year? And I kind of put a little package together with all this information on something. So I know it's just who I am. It works for me.
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
Yeah.
So are you spending time on INAT? Or do you not do INAT?
I do INAT. I don't have too many observations myself on there, maybe 25 or so. But I spend a weird amount of time on INAT. I am on there a lot.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, INAT and I have a very interesting relationship because for the longest time it bothered, like being an old school biologist that was raised with literally paper maps. Like I remember when the first GPS units came out and you would get a coordinate and then you would have to go to a paper map with rulers and triangulate to figure out where you were. Like that was my generation. And now I watch my students and they're just like, oh, here's a record of a moth. Here's a record of a bird. And it's more about the record than it is the animal. That bothered me. But then when I started to meet people like you that are actually using it as a resource to learn and that knowledge to, discipline that they're part of, I kind of got it then. Yeah. So
I've got a little plug for INAT and our neighbors to the south that I just recently discovered. So when you had your episode with John from King Snake, we talked about, these write-ups for snakes. So I've been working on that. I talked to Cole Grover, Scott Ballard, putting together some pretty cool write-ups, pretty detailed, in-depth stuff. I'm proud of it. Nothing's released yet, but it's coming. So what I started doing is contacting some of the folks throughout Latin America that have taken photos and just explaining who I was, what I was doing, asked their permission to use their photos. It's nothing like dealing with Americans.
Oh, no.
They are so friendly. They are so excited to share their photos. It's been really wonderful. So for anyone that's trying to write books, write articles, and you need photos, the folks in Latin America are amazing to deal with. They will go out of their way to really help you out, and INAT gives you instant access to them.
I can second that. Now, mine was more South America when I wrote the false water book. I have to tell the story real quick. There's a I can't even remember what it is. This is how absent-minded I am. It was a species of Phylodryas. There was no picture of it. Like there just wasn't a picture of it. But I found the guy who was taking snake pictures, putting them on Instagram in the general area, like the species were from the area where this thing was. So I sent him a private message. I think he was a Brazilian, so I had to do the Google Translate to Portuguese, and I sent it, which is kind of fun. I got real proficient at that. And anyway, he wrote back sorry, I don't have any pictures of that. I've seen 2 in my lifetime. How important is it that you need the photographs? And I wrote back, it'd be cool to have them, but it's not necessary. Thanks. If you have any other pictures of Phylodryas, thank you. He sent me, this is not exaggerating, 60 photographs, just boom, 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 which was amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't talk to him. 3 weeks later, he sends me a picture of that snake. And it was like, I went up into the Andes for you. I spent 4 nights up there, but I was able to get a picture of it. I didn't get hands on it. And I was like, are you kidding me? Meanwhile, most of the Americans I worked with, I will fully say, they were cool. Like Mike Pinkleton was a biggie, Jake Scott, Kenny Ray. They gave me a lot of photographs. I will flat out tell you about 30 to 40% wanted money. And that's fine. Yes. I get it, But they're not going on a freaking week-long expedition to get me a picture of a snake that there's no photograph of out of their own goodwill. I mean, it was I know exactly what you're talking about. They are absolutely wonderful, wonderful people.
Yep.
And they were he was so geeked to have his photographs in a book. That was the end all be all for him. So
I've interacted with a couple, I guess, commercial entities from south of the border, and they were more American. They wanted they wanted all the details, and they wanted some control, and they wanted reimbursed. But the individuals throughout, all of Mexico, Central America, into South America are just awesome. They do anything to help you. It's been a joy interacting with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I can second that experience for 100%. Okay, so with that being said, I want to segue into husbandry, if that's okay. Are you cool with that, Clint?
Yeah, absolutely. As we're going into husbandry, because I think, can we not necessarily have a list, but get an idea on the different milk snake species you are working with? Because just going off of our little discussion prior to the show, I know you got some differences in how you keep things. So if we have an idea on the different species that we're going into, that way they have a little bit of background of where we're going.
Okay. I'm going to miss some. There's a lot.
That's fair.
So for milk snakes, I've got Sinaloan milks, sort of Nelson's milks. I don't consider them pure, but they're pretty close. Hopefully I'm going to get some from David Dean pretty soon. We're doing a little trade situation, so I'll do a little better there. I've got some Jalisco milks, Persifera.
Ooh.
I've got Conant's milks. I've got Pueblan milks, some really cool ones from Cole. If you need Pueblans, hit Cole up. I've got some Blanchard's milks or Yucatan milks, depending on how you view them. I've got some Atlantic Central Americans. I've got some Salina Cruz milks, a bunch of different Hondurans, both real ones and what I call them hobby Durans. You know, all the really pretty ones that no one really knows what they are. I call them hobby Durans. What else do I got? I've got a few lines of black milks. I've got the South American milks or Ecuadorian milks, again, depending on how you view their situation. Some Indian milks, a few different lines of Stewart's milks. I think that's it. Yeah, that's probably it. Oh, I've got a couple of the Northern Temperate milks. Cole sent me a few of them. He's trying to get that fire lit. So they're cool. I don't think they can compete with the Latin American stuff, though.
You know, I want to say thank you for not just using a bunch of taxonomic names, because I'd have just been sitting here nodding along.
Mhm.
So that I was actually able to follow everything you're keeping there, Aaron. So
Okay, good.
Okay. So who sponsors the husbandry section, Clint?
The husbandry section is going to be sponsored by our good friends over at ZoomEd. Let's go ahead and let's hear from them.
CCR is proud to be sponsored by ZoomEd Laboratories.
ZoomEd has been servicing the reptile industry since 1977. And in 1993, they introduced us to the Repticide, the very first UVB bulb specifically for reptiles.
In addition to boasting a 1,200-item product line, ZoomEd also has an extensive reptile breeding program, with many species being kept at their incredible greenhouse facility located in California.
Thank you, ZoomEd, for supporting Colubrid and Colubrid Radio. All righty.
Appreciate your support, ZoomEd.
Yes, thank you, ZoomEd. So before we started recording, I asked Aaron, so how do you keep these? And he basically said, there's a bunch of ways to keep them. So that's what we're going to learn about now. So in general, let's say we'll cover neonates fresh out of the egg in a minute. But let's say we have an established baby, we'll start small, or a juvenile. And it's coming in, it's gotten out of quarantine with you. What's it going into? What's the temps? The whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, so I think most of my stuff is Interacs, probably about 60% I have in tubs, either 28 or 41 quart tubs, depending on size and kind of how they behave.
Okay.
Some milks, of course, are happy to just wedge themselves under something and basically never move. Some milks are on the go. So I take that into consideration. I also have a lot of bovine enclosures. The 4x2x1 is kind of the standard. Yeah. That's what I use for a lot of stuff. And then I also have some glass tanks like ZoomEd, Exoterra style things, the front opening. So I've got an assortment of things. And I really just kind of consider the size of the animal, the activity level of the animal, where it's from. You know, if something needs a little more humidity, I'm not going to put it in a screen top container. You just have to add too much water to the substrate. I'm always spraying. It just doesn't work out as well. And then I have some things that are some of my, I guess, somewhat larger milks, like Sinaloan milks. I've tried putting them in the 4-foot containers. I feel like that's where they should be. They're pretty active. They're fun to watch, but I've found that they don't do as well. So I keep them in the 41 quart tubs. I hate having them in there. I would much rather look at them, but I think they're a little more happy in a 41 quart tub.
Cool. We don't know where Clint went. If you're in the car, still there. There he is. Okay, cool. That new cameraman. All right. So in the tub, what's the substrate look like? What type? Is it just aspen? Is it cocoa chunk?
Usually shredded aspen, but if I have something that has some issues shedding, then I'll go to like shredded coconut. Not quite like the chip stuff, but things that are a little more finely ground, just so I can keep the humidity a little higher. I keep a humid hide in everything, no matter what. I don't have any super arid land animals that I have to worry about that. So everything gets a humid hide. But there's a few things that I just noticed they need some extra humidity, and they get the coconut and sprayed down every once in a while.
And for the humid hide, what is that? Is it just a tub inside a tub kind of thing, or?
Yes. So sometimes it's just another tub with a hole drilled in the side. I've had some custom hide boxes made, and I've kind of recreated them, some extra ones myself too. That's sort of the same thing, but with a opaque material, so it's a little darker in there. So something with like a 2.5 inch hole, so they can just crawl in, filled with slightly damp sphagnum moss, that sort of thing. Just somewhere where they can get to that has 90 to 100% humidity if they want it.
Gotcha.
And oddly enough, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that one of the species or subspecies that I've noticed kind of needs that extra humidity, and it really surprises me because of where they're from relative to other subspecies. But my Stewart's milks, Stewart eye, they seem to like that extra humidity, even compared to something like a black milk or an Ecuadorian milk.
That's interesting.
I was going to ask you, you'd mentioned that, obviously you put some in tubs due to behaviors, not necessarily size. Can you give us a few examples of the species and the behaviors that you're speaking of? I think I've got an idea, but I want our audience to kind of know why you go that direction with certain ones.
So some of the kind of F2, F3 Hondurans, the real ones, they're pretty high strung. They don't like interacting with me at all. I've got a wild caught Honduran that Cole sent me that is a handful. It cannot be held at all. It'll just chew the hell out of you. So that's something that I put in tubs, because if I have it in a big enclosure with like a glass or plexiglass front, when I walk in front of the enclosure, that thing is just smacking into a wall. Mm-hmm. So I put it somewhere where it feels a little more secure and safe.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Makes sense.
All right. So temperatures. I've heard with tropical or Latin milks, they need lower temperatures. I had one guy tell me 84-degree hotspot. I'm curious what your thermal regime is, and maybe cover it like winter, spring, summer, fall kind of thing, if you don't mind. Or is there even a difference like that?
There's a little bit of a difference. So my situation, my snake room, it's an extra room on my house that someone added to the home prior to me buying it. So the insulation isn't quite what it should be. So it gets a little warm in the summer, a little cool in the winter. So I have a little bit of a seasonal variance. I don't ever try to brumate anything on purpose other than like my Russian rats. So the milks are kept somewhat warm year round. But in the room, the ambient temps during the summer is probably 76 to 78, hot spot of 82 to 84.
Okay.
Things cool down at night. So at night, it's probably 72 degrees in there. And then in the winter, it's probably 65 to 68 degrees in there.
Oh, okay, cool. What's the coldest?
I do, but not near as often. I'll just occasionally give them something. If I notice an animal is really active, they're kind of cruising, they're looking for that meal, I'll give them something. Usually a little smaller. I don't want them to have any digestion issues since they are a little cooler. They still have some heat, but not like what they do during the summer.
Gotcha. And then what's the coldest it gets in the winter? Like when you have your cold snap or whatever?
About the coldest it'll ever be in that room is maybe 63.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, seeing that, hearing those numbers from a guy that breeds a bunch of North American, that scares me. That same thing with Asia.
Yeah.
Because it's like, to me, that's the danger zone, that 63 to even 68, because it's like, they're awake just enough to be burning calories and to have a weakened immune system. And it's like, so I'm dying to have it colder or just warm them up, and, not at all. So, I enjoy hearing that from you, because it gives reassurance on these other species that this is the way, or a way, let's call it that way, a way that is successful. So,
Yeah, I've definitely noticed I need to try to get things a little cooler. If it like Russian rat stinks, for example,
Mhm.
they need to be a little cooler. But your Latin American milks, I figure they spend a lot of their time in a burrow or wedged under fallen logs, down in tree roots, things like that. If you dig a hole, 2 or 3 feet deep, it's going to be 60 degrees or so. So they're comfortable with that temperature. That's probably where they spend a lot more of their lives than we realize.
Yeah. Oh,
Fair
no.
point.
No, hardly. Okay. So keeping the husbandry line in line, I'd like to talk about feeding rates for babies versus juveniles versus adults. And then well, I'll come back to that. So what's feeding these things look like?
So once a week is typically the standard. New babies will get twice a week, so like every Wednesday and Saturday. As things get cooler, I slow things down some. Females that I'm getting ready to breed that year, so that's spring from kind of February through May, I'll feed them about as much as they want.
Really?
Just let them kind of gorge. So I started doing that with king snakes years ago, and always worked out really well. Got huge clutches. Females looked amazing right after laying eggs. Transferred it to milks, and it's worked out great.
So what does gorge look like? Are you like 2 meals a week, or is it the largest prey item they can take?
Multiple meals a week.
Okay.
So like something that eats large mice, they'll get 2 mice twice a week, sort of thing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then once they get pretty big, so like my largest black milks, they're 7 feet, a little over 7 feet. I'll feed them every other week. So they'll get 3 small mice every 2 weeks. That works really well for them.
Man. Okay. So, all right. And then with the babies, we'll circle back to babies. So are these guys normally easy to start? Are they a pain in the butt to start? What's starting baby milk, Latin American milks like?
Most of them are pretty easy. I would say about 75% take frozen thawed pinkies or fuzzies right away. No tricks necessary. Of the ones that don't want to do that, boiled or brained works really well. Boiled works quite a bit better than brained, but sometimes I will brain them. I generally avoid live feeding just because I know not everyone has access to live rodents. So I try to avoid that unless it becomes a matter of life or death, and then I'll hunt down a few live pinkies for them. If boiled and brain doesn't work and they start to look a little thin, then I will start feeding tails, either mouse tails or chunks of rat tails. Works really well. I don't think I've ever had to do that more than 3 or 4 times before they'll come around and actually eat on their own. I think they just need that little boost of metabolism.
And then
what species tend to be the ones that require the tricks, or those are the more common to have a little bit of difficulty with?
I don't think there's one that kind of stands out as more difficult. It's just kind of a percentage of them. A few that never have problems. So like my Loughman milks, it's super rare that, I kind of have my own line, the buyer line. I had a wild caught male that I put with a Casala female because there was no other females for him to breed to. Those babies have been fantastic, and I've talked to people that have gone on to reproduce babies that they got from me. Same story. I mean, it's pretty much 100% success rate straight out of the egg. So they're ones that are exceptionally good.
Gotcha.
Okay. Cool. So
Zac,
what are you
keeping?
keeping?
Contacting you after the show, Aaron. That's
What are you keeping these guys in as young? Like, are they going? What size tub, or are they going into delis, or
small? What are the size tubs? Maybe an 8-quart, I think is what they are. Okay. Just small tubs. I'll usually keep them in there for maybe 6 to 10 months, depending on how they grow, and then I'll start putting them into something else.
Okay, gotcha. All right. I'm trying to think of the last questions. So with any of them, just behavior. When are they active? Are they active all day? Are they active at night? Crepuscular? When do you go in your snake room and see these guys cruising?
So for like the Sinaloans and the Jalisco Milks, they're pretty active all the time. I see them cruising around or hanging out at the front of their cage or tub, kind of watching me. They're alert day and night. There's really no set standard for them. Some of my stuff, like the most of my Stewart's milks and the Ecuadorian milks, they're much more nocturnal. They're during the day, they're in their hide or they're curled up in the back of a cage, really not moving, just a little still ball. Yeah, I think it kind of varies based on the time of year and kind of the temperatures too. Stuff kind of goes a little more towards nocturnal as it's hotter.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, Clint, any more husbandry questions?
I don't think so. I think one of the things I want to ask is, when we're talking about because again, I love talking more about the behaviors. And so, we talked about some of them being real skittish. We talked about some that, a lot easier. It's funny because I've got my own answer in my head on this, but I want to hear yours because you're dealing with a lot more than I am. If someone was saying, you know what, okay, cool episode, animals sound fantastic, I want to step in and get some, Latin species now. Which, give us 2 species that you'd say start here. You start here, you're going to want more. What are the 2?
I think the best Latin milks to start with are going to be either the Sinaloan milks or the Stewart's milks.
Gotcha.
I love them both. They're very easy. They look cool. They get fairly big, big enough to kind of be proud of. You can, when you have your friends over at your house, you can pull it out, show them off. The Stewart eye can be a little nippy as babies, but as adults, they're totally fine. So you can pass them around to friends, kids, stuff like that, and kind of see if you can get someone else addicted.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, it's even though they're the biggest, it's the black milks because they're just so much more chill than, everything else. They're such a laid back milk snake. And it's hard for me to think of one better for that.
I'll get you some Providencia black milks and we'll see what you think about their behavior. They are a handful.
Touche.
Yeah.
All right. So we kind of covered it, but just to make sure we cover all the bases, let's segue to breeding. So it sounds like we're not doing a hard brumation, which kind of makes sense. We're just kind of letting them maybe drop a little bit in the winter, just like it would in, lower latitude kind of thing. Is that fair?
Yeah, the temperature drops a little bit. I have a huge window in my snake room, so there's a little bit of a reduction in light throughout the year. So once winter gets, fewer hours of light, and I'll also try to keep the lights off in the room. I will only turn the lights on if I'm in there feeding or cleaning, that sort of thing. So it stays not dark, but darker than normal. So they get a little bit of a light cycle shift there. And then reduced feeding as well. So I think the slightly lower temps, the slightly lower light, and the slightly lower feeding rate kind of all plays a part. So, and my fertility is always fantastic. So there's no need for a hard brumation.
Do you do any cohabbing by chance?
Generally, no. I have a few things that I do cohab, and then like during the breeding season, I'll leave a lot of stuff together for months. Sometimes, depending on how they behave, some things I need to separate while feeding them, and then some things I'll just use the tongs or hemostats and kind of get them to separate sides of the cage and feed them, and then they're going to be fine.
Cool. So it sounds like when it comes to breeding, even though there is some cycling because we're reducing food in the winter. There's a little bit of light cycling. There's a little bit of temp cycling. But when the light levels are then creeping back up, we're also food cycling then with the gorging of the females, or is that too strong?
No, that's kind of when I'll start feeding them more. And not, not every female will take a ton of food, but a few
Gotcha.
Absolutely do. And, I almost can't feed them enough. Just some of them are like that.
All right. And then drop eggs. When are they normally dropping their clutches? Is it like typical May, June kind of situation, or are they
usually June and early July? Like I just had a Sinaloan clutch a couple days ago.
All right, cool. And then do you see double clutching in these guys or no?
Occasionally, so I never pair them up again, but occasionally the females will drop extra clutches. I've seen it quite a bit in Sinaloans, a couple times in Stewarts, a couple times in Black Milks, and quite a bit in the Ecuadorian milks too.
Cool.
And I know I haven't seen it personally, but I know it happens a lot with Pueblo milks.
Very cool. Okay.
Are we done with husbandry? Because I have more of a locality question now.
Yep. No, we're segueing now to taxa and all that.
Okay. So as far as locality, because a lot of times when we talk about locality keepers, we're talking about North American locality keepers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the just, you know, in United States locality keepers. And while that can be difficult enough in itself to verify, you know, that where they came from and lineages and whatnot, I'm sure it's got to be even more difficult coming from, you know, Central America, South America, anything like that, Latin America,
Yes.
out of the States, let's put it that way. So kind of, can you, I guess, talk to us a little bit about that, you know, how you're going about verifying what you have, and, you know, just, I just want to hear more about that piece since it's outside of our borders, I guess.
So it's a little easier, some of these lines that kind of went through Europe before they came to the US. Historically, the Europeans are much better with their record keeping. You can kind of trust them a little more. Like they had it figured out long before we did. They were doing everything right before we were. So that helps. And then, like when I'm doing something myself, for example, I just got a corrected locale on a line of Black Milks. For years, they were known as Siqueiros Black Milks, Siqueiros, Costa Rica. But if you look at a map, Siqueiros is not appropriate KG habitat. It's too low, too hot, too dry. I was like, this just doesn't seem right. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole, started sending messages to people, phone calls to people, trying to figure out like where they actually came from. And so I finally worked my way to the guy that, you know, he had a facility in Costa Rica. He bred them. And so I talked to him, got the name of the guy that collected them, where that guy lived, where he collected them. So again, there's a little bit of trust and reputation that is involved, but if you put in the time, you can figure this stuff out. And so those Siqueiros Black Milks are actually from Guayacán de Siqueiros, a little town not far away, but higher elevation up the hill. So I was able to figure that out just by doing the legwork.
Mm-hmm. Nice. It's hard to even get that information here. So for you to be able to track that down over there, that are, you know, down there, that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. We've had a few people that were in Costa Rica. Robert Medinger, something like that, and Quetzal Dwyer. They both had facilities down there, so they have been a huge resource. Really, anything coming out of Costa Rica, if you talk to one of those two guys, they're going to have all the details for you. And there's people kind of like that all over the place. There's a couple guys in Honduras, you know, so it's just a matter of sending messages, placing phone calls, and you can eventually get it figured out.
So I'd like to ask just some fun questions about the subspecies, species, all that jazz.
Okay.
So that's what we'll spend the last half hour, 40 minutes doing. So I personally have always liked the deep South, like the South American, Central American interface, the Ecuadorians, the Indians. I had Indians. I think I actually got an Indian. I don't know if I got it from you. I think somebody got it from you, and then I got it from them. So I had one of your Indians for quite some time.
Okay.
And that's when I bumbled into this whole micropholus. Like, what is this name? Because there was like Indiziana or whatever it was. And then I kept seeing that name, and I was like, what is that? So I would like to just real quick, not put you on the spot, but can we talk about just recent taxonomy so people understand? Because, you know, I always do this on the show because of my experience with Thayeri, because I went to grad school and it was Thayeri, and then I came back in and there's this Leonis name, and I'm like, what the hell are these people saying? That's Thayeri.
Yeah.
is there a new snake? Like I was so like caught off guard. I was like, is there something else that's a variable king snake? So just to kind of let the world know, I believe currently, if you go by one line of thought, we'll leave it at that. We're not going to get into the controversy. We're just going to say one theory.
It's your people that do this, Zach.
Yeah,
Okay?
I know. I knew you were going to do that too. So I believe if you go by that theory, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it could very well be wrong. There's one camp that says it's all, when you go down into South America in particular, Micropholus. But then there's another camp that says not so much, or just kind of learn us on taxonomy real quick.
All right. So there's been a few proposals, suggestions, whatever you want to call them, for milksnake taxonomy over the last 100 years. Really the first major take that a lot of people became exposed to and agreed with was Williams, in 1978, 1988. He thought they were all one species, which holds a little weight, but he kind of went crazy with the subspecies concept. There's a couple there that probably shouldn't be subspecies. And I like subspecies. I think the term gets overused quite a bit, but there's different morphology in these different populations, and we need some way to kind of keep track of that. And just calling things subspecies seems to work, even if it's not always accurate, but I get it. Prior to that, Blanchard, he had his take, is 1920 something. He generally thought, he wasn't completely convinced. He thought there needed to be more study done, but Micropholus or Micropolis, I think cool people say Micropolis, not so cool people say Micropholus. So it's whatever you want to call them. Was its own species. And this is the southernmost milk snake, what is found in Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, maybe Peru. I think not officially Peru, but they're in Peru. So he thought that it should be its own species. Williams disagreed. It was a subspecies of Triangulum. I guess we're not mentioning names, but in 2014, a paper came out that was a little bit silly. There was some boundaries drawn that really didn't make any sense. But what did make sense on it, in my opinion, was that Micropolis was elevated to a full species status. More recently, a fantastic paper came out that really makes a lot of sense, but it's lumped all of the Central American stuff as Lampropeltis polyzona. So, and that's all the way from what we know is the Tamaulipan milk snake all the way down to the Ecuadorian milk snake. What most people know that southern clade as, the Micropolis clade, is the black milk, the Ecuadorian milk, and the Andean milk. The Andean milk is kind of just a high elevation variety of the Ecuadorian milk. They're almost identical, just a higher band count. Maybe they get a little bit darker. What's interesting is a lot of folks think that the Ecuadorian milk is purely a lowland coastal animal, hot, humid, which is true, but they're also found in places like Quito, Ecuador, which is pretty cool. It's a cool location. It's not hot, humid, jungle like a lot of people. So they're kind of found everywhere, actually. The black milk fits somewhat in between your Micropolis clade and something like Stewarti and Hondurensis. The genetic testing shows that they kind of have a lot going on, and I agree with that. I think what happened historically is in northern Costa Rica, you kind of had the Honduran influence come down. I guess northwestern Costa Rica, you had the Stewarti influence come down. That spread laterally throughout Costa Rica, into Panama, into Colombia, etc. And then there was some gene flow back and forth. And then after that occurred, some animals started traveling higher in elevation, and that's how we got the black milk. So in some areas of Costa Rica, the black milk kind of freely integrates with Stewarti. I think it's Monteverde, something like that. in Costa Rica, you can see there's definitely kind of an intermediate or integrated population, however you want to look at that. And if you look at some neonate black milks, they sort of resemble Stewart Eye, and others sort of resemble Micropolis. So there's definitely a need for more testing to go on there. The most recent fantastic paper that came out was the Chambers and Hillis paper. I think it was 2020 that came out. They put everything as polyzona. So they kind of killed the Micropolis as a species idea. I'm still holding strong to it. I think their morphology matters. If you look at them, they're a thicker, stouter milk snake. They have kind of the stocky bulldog head, usually a shorter tail. Between the black milk, the Ecuadorian milk, and the Indian milk, where they live is a little different than what you typically find Stewart's milk and Honduran's milk. So I'm holding on to them being their own species, but the most recent analysis doesn't really support that. I'm just a man on an island by myself.
I've read that.
Just pull your own die on, right?
Yeah. No.
I get it. Black rat snakes are black rat snakes. Screw what all these other people are saying. I feel you, Aaron, just on a different species. So.
Especially when you get into things like scale count. Like people don't consider anything more than pattern and color a lot of times. Like even their scales are different. Like the black milk has a lower scale count, so therefore larger body scales. Same thing happened. I forget the name of it, but one of their kind of cheek scales is different. So their scalation is different, their size is different, their behavior is different. In my opinion, when you add all of this stuff up, it kind of justifies being a separate species.
I'm more on that side. So here's the thing, and I'm going to put my egghead on. So it's on. Here we go, full nerd. I was actually having this conversation on the trip with Christian while we were driving around Ruby Road. I think that when these papers come out, the herpetocultural community has this tendency to view them as almost gospel. And the thing is, it is up to the person reading the paper and their knowledge base to make a conclusion. There's no one with a gun up against our head saying, you know, so-and-so said, I'm going to call it Microfolus because that's what I called him all life. Microfolus isn't a species. Now it's polyzona. I've got to adopt it. You can adopt whatever the hell you want. So there's, you know, it's just occasionally, you know, governments, state governments and political governments will adopt a name, and then there's ramifications therein. But if you have an understanding, And the other thing that I think is important, and I love what you're saying, Aaron, because I agree with it 100%, is that we get so hung up on DNA with these damn species descriptions. There's more to it than that, per se. That is one line of evidence. But, you know, there's an ecological species concept, an evolutionary species concept, a biological species concept. So, you know, an integrated species concept where you take bits and pieces of each species concept and come up with your own species. Like that's what I do whenever I look at this stuff. And if you've got a phenotypic response to a unique environment that another lineage is not in, which is exactly what you're talking about, sure, they might occasionally breed at a lower elevation. But I am personally not entirely convinced that absolute complete genetic isolation is really overly important, because one thing we've learned is that male subthins like to breed with female subthins, and sometimes they make a mistake, and I don't think they care. So, yes. You know what I mean? So you're going to, that keeping it all pure. We are more obsessed with things being pure than nature.
Yeah.
Did.
And so, I think just in the hobby, our situation with what is known as Honduran milk snakes, Sinaloan milk snakes, Nelson's milk snakes is proof that milks will breed with anything that's put in front of them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that phenotypic response to a geography, that can't just be pushed out because the genes are saying one thing. I feel like that's happening as an ecological response. And if you take that black milk up high and put it down low, and you take that Stewart's milk down low near the coast in Guanacaste, Costa Rica, up in Monteverde, they're not going to do well. So I don't really
Exactly.
I feel like that should be taken into the consideration too, and sometimes that's not. So anyway,
Yeah.
all right,
And
cool.
And there's a lot of variation within these species or within certain populations that I think is overlooked a lot of times. So if you look at what the description of a subspecies is, yes, there's something in that population that matches it exactly. But in that same population, there's a lot of stuff that has some variance to it. So we start trying to categorize things sometimes, and it's not considering the full picture.
Hell yeah. So of those southern Latin American milks that we just talked about, because this is selfish now, because that's always been my favorite group. Is there one that you would recommend as like the beginner group, or are they all pretty much the same to take care of? Is there any little tweak since they're at the higher elevation that you like? I've always heard keep black milks cool. That's something. Do you agree with that statement, or do you just keep them under the same parameters you're keeping your other guys under?
So I don't put a hotspot or additional supplemental heat for the black milks or the Andean milks. They just get room temperature. It's not so much that you have to keep them cool, just don't let them get hot.
Okay.
If my room hits 85 degrees, you can tell the black milks and the Andean milks aren't happy. They're in their water bowl. They're pressed up against the front of the cage. So high 70s, low 80s max works for them. I know there are people that will keep them in the 60s with a hot spot of about 74. I don't have my room in the 60s year round, but people have done it and it's worked well. Again, I look up the temperatures in all the areas that these things are from, and they're from places that are a lot cooler than we realize. Yes. There are areas of Colombia that are flat out cold. We wouldn't dream of keeping our snakes at those temperatures, but it's where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You know, it's off topic of milk snakes, but I think that's something Zach and I experienced when we were with our friends out there in California herping. I mean, how many things did we find at 55 degrees at night?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
You know what I mean? We did not expect anything to be out at that point, but sure enough,
when you get out,
there were a lot.
When you get outside and start looking for reptiles and amphibians, and you actually, boots on the ground, you realize that, like in the desert, I was just in the desert, and there were the rocks were, when the sun actually came out, 130 degrees, 140 degrees. If I temp gun down into the crevices at like noon, 3 feet down into the crevices, it's like 74.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, those animals being ectothermic, they're just going to follow the thermal preference that they like all day. Like, so they might live in an area that gets to be 110 degrees, but when it's 110 degrees, they're at 74 degrees. And they come out at night. Why do they come out at night? Because that's when it's an ambient of 74 degrees. And that's just the way that they are. So I think that is an important part of, especially colubrid keeping, that must be understood, is like those microhabitats. That's what you need to be trying to match, not the highs and the lows necessarily. But I digress.
Yeah. I'll add with black milks and Andean milks. So milks in general aren't much of baskers, but I've done some experiments with some milk snakes, king snakes, ball pythons, Argentine boas, and my Russian rat snakes, experimenting with belly heat versus overhead heat lamps, sometimes with UV, sometimes without. The black milks and Andean milks seem to like to bask, especially when UV is involved. The other subspecies of milks really don't care. They'll do concealed basking. I'll have like a large stone or a piece of tile or a piece of slate under the lamp, and they'll get under that stone and sit under that with a warm spot. But the black milks and the Andean milks like the light. They like to bask. Not all the time, but definitely a lot more than the other subspecies. And I think that's part of where they're from, how they evolved. If they want to warm up, they've got to get out in the sun.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And my final black milk, and we'll move north. Question. I've purchased for Zeusai. I know I've got black milks from you before. I bought some black milk. Some were generic black milk, just black milk snakes. Some were locality. And then I go online and I see, you just mentioned you got 7-footers. Like I've seen the poor man's indigo. I don't like that name, but These
Me
big
either.
monsters.
I hate it.
I mean, but like, that's what I'm talking about. Is there a line? Is there a particular group? I don't even know what I'm assuming line that just gets big. Like, because I've always wanted big black milks, and I always end up getting they're big milk snakes, but they're not like that. Bam, big milk look. What are your recommendations for that?
So the San Antonio Zoo is the line that can hit that size. Not all of them do.
Yeah.
So I have 3 that are 7 feet or maybe slightly over 7 feet. I've talked to a few people I've sold animals to, and there's at least 2 others that are in that 7-foot range as well. But I've also got one. I've got a friend of mine that I sold a female to. He had her for a few years, and he sent her back to me to try to get some eggs from her. She's much smaller. She's about 5.5 feet. So there's no guarantee that they're going to hit the 7 feet. But the only line that seems capable of it is the San Antonio Zoo. Okay. I've produced a lot of the Providencia locale, and 5.5, 6 feet seems kind of normal for them. The Miramar animals, which are the black milks that don't turn completely black, they usually end up kind of bicolored or very heavy tipped tricolor. They're usually 5.5, 6 feet as well. I just got some babies from the Guayacán de Siquirres, which is the same basic area that the San Antonio Zoo animals are from. So I don't know how they're going to turn out yet, but if another line is going to become a giant, that's probably the line that's going to do it.
It was which line again?
The Guayacán de Siquirres.
Okay, gotcha.
So they were a little more popular in Europe. There's only a few people in the U.S. that have them. They've been around for a while, but they're almost the same thing as the San Antonio Zoo line, just with a more precise locale.
Gotcha.
I will say one thing too about the San Antonio Zoo line is it's also the most well-known line, which means it's the most quoted as this is what I have.
Yeah. Which
doesn't mean it's what they have. So It's, you know what I mean? It's most overrepresented, yet probably not true on
I beat the hell out of that drum. Yeah. A lot of people will attach that name and they have no idea. They just say, "Oh, that's what I bought it as." Whereas mine,
unfortunately, that's kind of how a lot of locality keeping is we're going off the word of whoever we got it from in a lot of cases, And so, to your point that you made at the beginning, of the episode, where certain individuals have the reputation needed to trust it, but even then. You start getting, well, these originated from Aaron, but that person's never even, you've never even spoke to him. You know what I mean? So
that's why you call that person or send them a message on Facebook. So like my San Antonio Zoo black milks, I know who I bought them from. I asked him where he got them. So I called that guy just to make sure. Mm-hmm. And then that guy said he got them from Alan Cardon at the San Antonio Zoo. So I shot him an email just to make sure. I did it. It took a day and a half. It's not hard to do.
And the point is that so many people aren't going to take the steps. And I'm not knocking the people that don't take the steps. It's just understanding the truth that's out there. That specifically, if we're talking about milk snakes and lines, that's probably the most popular. That is going to get used more often than any others when it's not been verified. Is the San Antonio line of black milk.
Yeah, and it really is that whether people know what line it is or not, it is going to be the most popular line. It's been bred. There's thousands of them out there. Whereas some of these others, the Providencia, there's a handful of them. At one time, I was the only person that had a pair and was able to reproduce them. I've got pairs out to a few people now, but there's not very many of them. A lot of people don't even know they exist.
Man.
I'm about to say, this is the first time I've heard of that particular line. It's you talking about it here.
Can you tell real quick, since we kind of have you on here, the backstory on the San Antonio line? Like we always say San Antonio Zoo. How did they leave the zoo? Do you know that story?
So when they they were collected in Costa Rica by George Van Horn and Fred Antonio. They were originally at the Florida Zoo. It was a gravid female is what was collected. Once those eggs hatched, most of them stayed at the Florida Zoo, or maybe it was the Central Florida Zoo.
Central Florida Zoo, yep.
Yeah. Some of those babies went to San Antonio along with a adult male that was imported by Tom Crutchfield from the same general area. And that's what made the San Antonio Zoo line. That group, that it ended up being 2.1 animals, if I remember correctly. Those animals, a couple of them went to a keeper they had at the time. A couple of them went to Tracy Barker. And then there was a few that just went out to select individuals. And that's where my line comes from. I don't remember the guy's name, Mark something. I've got it in my notes. If you want it, I can get it for you.
Really, Aaron?
Yeah.
All this. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know why the zoo let them out? That's the question.
So the Texas zoos are, at least in the 70s and 80s, were kind of cool with hobbyists. A lot of the Dallas Zoo, the San Antonio Zoo, let a lot of milksnakes out. That was like the Milksnake Wild West. All of the zookeepers there, the actual professional herpetologists, were all cool as hell. And the stuff they had at the zoo, they also had at home, and they were breeding stuff and giving it to people. A lot of stuff that was there on breeder loan. Part of the agreement was you're going to sell the babies. The zoo can have half, and the people that supplied them get half the money as well. It was a different time. AZA does not allow that sort of thing now. It's the bane of my existence, because sometimes I find an animal and there's nothing to pair it with, and I find a zoo that has something that I can pair it with, and they're like, nope. I'm like, but you can't breed it either. So if we don't work something out, it's over. And they won't do it. But 70s and 80s, they sure would.
That's interesting. Okay. And then I guess the final.
Hold on, before we move, because this is an interesting topic. And I think, hopefully we can continue to move that, because that would be another example of of a pendulum swing. You know what I mean? Where it went from everything, it was free love, it's everybody fair swap and all that. And then boom, all the way to where, super strict, super rigid. And I understand where so much of the rigidness comes from a biosecurity standpoint. That's where so much of it is. We know that. But I will say, I think there's some steps taking place now. And I say this from the standpoint of a lot of behind the scenes that Zac and I do and are familiar with, where hopefully over the course of the next 20 years, while there may be harsh procedures that are put in place to ensure that it happens right, maybe some of that mentality shifts back a little bit to where there can be partnerships with people in herpetoculture and facilities and things like that to get some of these breeding programs off. And I just say it, I know a lot of it sounds like a pipe dream and hopeful, but knowing some of the things that we know that are taking place and that are being worked on, whether that's with even relationships that are changing with DNR, and that's like one step, as far as the hobby and that organization, state to state, organization. But I think over the next 20 years, we might see a little bit more hand in hand take place, as long as certain rigid, specifications are followed.
Yeah, I think people are starting to realize that the hobbyists, the herpetoculturists, do a fantastic job. There's people that have, a facility in their home it's every bit as good as any zoo. Mm-hmm. There's a fantastic book from David and Tracy Barker. It's called The Invisible Ark, I think is what it is. And it's kind of the case for captivity to protect species, basically. And having stuff only in zoos is not the way to do it. You get good breeding populations going, and then you get them in as many hands as possible to ensure the success of a species. And that's kind of what me and a lot of other milk heads are doing kind of on our own. I trade and give away more milk snakes than I sell every year, just because some of the more rare stuff, I want a lot of capable hands to have them so they stick around.
Well, and I think something else that it may not be fully understood by the zoos yet, or even herpetologists, even those in the academic world, but I think it's slowly starting to shift a little bit. Is like, okay, if we look at a zoo, the milk snakes that they have at a zoo are 2% of the animals they have, right? And even the individual who
they're
is
like
working
0.01%.
yeah. It's low, right? It's low. So the individual who is working with those milk snakes, that's just a small percentage of what they are working with on a day-to-day basis and taking care of. So who do we feel is going to recognize the subtle cues, behaviors, nuance of these animals that zookeeper, not knocking any zookeepers by any means. They're going to know a whole lot more about so many other things than we would. But then when we look at you, Aaron, who has so many of these species, and that's what you're working with constantly every single day, and seeing the differences in all these that help you identify certain behavioral patterns, that's where we truly learn so much more about how to keep these, how to breed these, how to be successful.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that will hopefully translate over the next 10, 15, 20 years, as long as we can continue to represent ourselves in the right manner to be taken seriously.
I'm not pushing back on the argument because I agree with everything.
No, I know where you're going with it. Go ahead.
But zoo sci, and I work with zoos with turtles, and I'm in the AZA SAFE program. And, when herpetoculturalists are in a public place and we find out that this animal was smuggled in, and we're just kind of like, well, we're going to turn a blind eye to that. We need it to start this captive population. No, we don't. You got to follow the rules. And if you're not willing to follow the rules, you're not going to play with AZA, because AZA is bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy, with a little bit of bureaucracy layered with bureaucracy, nestled in bureaucracy. And like with the Turtle Safe program, I sit in these meetings and find out about, this. They never say names, but they hint strongly. And some of the people that have been implied with turtles that are shipping these turtles, like spotted turtles, over to China. And, we got to do better. Like, we can't in any way condone that behavior. And I it makes me, I sit and I hear all sides of the argument. If we belittle that type of behavior and lead by example, which I do believe we're doing, people like you, Aaron, are absolutely doing that. CCR is doing that. And then just be the louder voice in the room. But when we have voices that represent herpetoculture that just scream and shout from the mountaintops, don't take our rights away, but at the same time aren't willing to turn around and say, by the way, don't send all those turtles to China, it's going to be really hard to break into those legitimate conservation organizations, because they have to. Like, that's the part that I don't think people understand. If a DNR, West Virginia got regs. They didn't want to give us herp regs. They didn't want to do that. But the COs didn't know how to identify turtles. And we found out that all of our wood turtles were going to Europe and they were going to China. And so what was the end result? We got to make it so any turtle found with anybody gives a conservation officer the right to stop them. I don't like it, but so there's a lot of self-policing that I feel like herpetoculture must do. And I don't think we do that anywhere near the degree that we should. So that's the kind of flip side to the argument. If we're willing to do that piece, I agree. Now, one thing I will say, it's also insanely difficult for zoos to give zoos animals, which I don't think a lot of people understand. So right now, West Liberty has 2 possums. We don't have 1, we got 2. And I got to find a house for this possum. This has been one of the most frustrating things in my life. I got a possum. This zoo wants the possum. We have to do everything shy of a blood sacrifice of my son on a full moonlit night to give this zoo a possum that we have. We have to get the thing checked by vets. We've got to get 3 letters of recommendation saying we are to be trusted. I got to give them a permit from West Virginia DNR saying we can have the possum. I've got to show them we've taken care of the possum. I got to show them we took records of the possum. So, the bureaucracy is also part of the whole thing that just kills it. And that's the thing that just isn't bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy. I don't think gets anything done. Right. So, yeah, no, the SAFE program and working with the turtles, That has been an extremely eye-opening event. Just this week, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday, right? Yeah, Tuesday, CCR night. I've gotten 4 emails about this shipment of box turtles was confiscated at JFK. This shipment of box turtles was confiscated at LAX. This shipment of box turtles was confiscated at Chicago. And not all of those are herp-related people. Some of them, some yeehaw that was contacted by someone in China and said, I'll give you $20 a turtle. But there's also a network of people that are doing that, and we got to shut that crap down. That can't happen.
I think many of us just don't think it happens here anymore. Or we don't think of it happening in the US. We think of it happening overseas. That's where reptiles are collected to ship here. In order to ship to Europe, we don't realize how often it happens right here under our own noses.
Yeah.
And that's just sad. It makes you understand why DNRs, will be so forceful and why some of these laws are out there. And, it's wild. That's crazy to hear. But
in the same token, absolutely agree. If there was a way, I think it would be awesome if there was a way for private breeders to go through some certification process where you want to be, AZA adjacent or ZAA adjacent, but you don't have an LLC, that you could basically go through kind of, a process that just lets the world know I'm one of the good guys. For the love of God, don't penalize me for being a good guy. I don't condone any of this bad behavior. And I got the same mission you do. That's the piece that's missing. That's the part that I always feel like.
So I've tried to go through that process. I did find a zoo that was willing to loan me Blanchard's Milksnake. It was one that was confiscated years and years ago. It's an old male now. They were willing to do it, but my home basically needed to be inspected by someone with an AZA certification. But they's like, you get that done, it's a done deal. We'll figure it out. So I started contacting every zoo within 300, 400 miles. And every single one of them, they said they would love to do it, but it's our policy that because you're a private person and you have a commercial aspect that we can't. So it just dead in the water.
That's an area that we need to work on in the future.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing. Okay. So final question. We're going a little late, but that's okay. This is the question I wanted to ask you before that wonderful tangent, because we love our tangents. What Latin milk is everybody sleeping on? Is there one that you're like, man, for the love of God, why aren't these more popular? Or is it all of them?
I mean, it's all of them. One that I think is kind of if people could get past the baby stage, the Ecuadorian milk or the South American milk, they're awesome. As babies, they are pretty sassy. They will chew on you. They'll chew on you a lot.
Well, I like things that do that.
If you can get, through the first six months to a year, they start to calm down all on their own. Like mine, I don't even hold them except for cleaning the cage. But at about a year old, year and a half, they just start chilling out on their own. They're super cool just because they're built differently. They're just like a heavy-bodied, thick milk snake. Their heads are just different. They just look cool. They have that bulldog head.
Yeah.
Some of them kind of go orange, not quite tangerine like a Honduran will, but they get a little bit of an orange coloration to them, and they're amazing looking. So they're a cool milk that a lot of people don't even know exists, even though they're pretty readily accessible. I mean, you can pick them up for a couple $100 every year. There's a handful of people that produce them.
Okay, cool. All right, we're going to ask. Are we ready to ask the final question, Clint?
Do it. Fire away.
Okay, cool. So very curious to hear your stance on this. And I know you listen to our show, so you pretty much know where we're going. So future of herpetoculture, you've been in it, for a while now. You've seen the ups, the flows, the good, the bad. You also have dwelled in this niche part of the discipline, which I also really think is cool. So I always love to hear those people's perspective. But where do you like where herpetoculture is going? Do you not like where herpetoculture is going? Do you think we're heading in the right direction, wrong direction? Our priorities are right, they're wrong. Just what's Aaron's take on this state of herpetoculture today?
I think we are going in the right direction. And there's kind of two things I've noticed in recent years that I think is an improvement. One pertains to ball pythons. I think when the ball python wave initially hit, it created a lot of people got into ball pythons not because they were animal lovers or snake lovers, because they were small business owners, which I'm fine with people making money, make all the money you want. But I want to see snake people working with snakes, not business owners just cranking things out. That seems to be improving. There's people with small collections really selectively breeding their stuff, thinking very carefully about what they're putting together, what the market needs, not just cranking out anything they can. And that kind of goes with all aspects of breeding snakes as well. For a long time, I saw people that were just desperate to breed the first male and the first female they could find, which is fine at first. I think everyone should breed snakes. When you get those eggs, it's awesome. It's a rush. And then when those babies start to hatch, it's awesome. It's a really great experience. But after you do it once or twice, slow down, take your time, really put some thought into what you're putting together. Try to create the best animal possible. Try to create animals that are going to sell well. So they're going to a good home. They're not a disposable animal. And I think people have started to do that in recent years. I'm not seeing folks say, I have this female who has a male I can breed it to. They're just trying to make babies just because. People are putting some effort into what they're pairing up. And I'm really happy seeing things like that.
That's cool.
Okay. Absolutely.
Is there a milk you're trying to find right now? Or have you
kind of the holy grail that we can't get is Dixon I, which is, in some ways, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. If you bred a Puebloan milk to Tamaulipan milk, you're going to have a Dixon I, but they just, it would look like one. But, that's kind of the sought after subspecies. And maybe it shouldn't have ever been a subspecies because it's basically a Mexican milk. But that's the one everyone has wanted for a really long time. So if something like that ever became available, you can bet I would get some.
You'd be on that immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
I do have one final question on this. I know we said that was the final, but this one's going to be small. But it's not just our question. As you can see, this question was coming from one of the listeners as well. So, Aaron, there's this thing called Colubrid Fest. That's right.
Yeah.
And I know we have some of your Texas buddies coming up. So, what's the deal, man? You going to come see us?
Possibly. So it occurs in a time of year that I'm super busy with kids and sports and stuff like that. But youngest child is a senior. There's going to be a senior this year. So all that stuff should kind of start ending and I'll have a little more free time. So if I don't make it this year, I'll definitely be there next year. As far as vending goes, a lot of my stuff hatches pretty late. I get a lot of September, October hatches. So if I do vend, it'll just be a handful of things. I might give someone else, a few snakes and be like, hey, try to sell these for me. But I'm not going to have, a big table, big spread of stuff if I ever vend there.
That's fair. But as you can see, you're being requested. So,
yeah,
you would be one that people are looking to see what you do bring. And I do think that it'd be great to have you out there, even if not.
All right. Well, I will make that happen. If not this year, next year I will definitely be there. As far as vending goes, I'm not sure yet. It'll just depend on when I get babies. I really like to have stuff feeding 5 to 10 times before I even think about selling them. So we'll just see how that works out. The timing allows for it.
Very cool.
Fair enough.
Well, this was wonderful, man. I really appreciated and enjoyed this one. So thank you for coming on. I'm glad we got you here. I feel like we have now done the Milksnake mafia or milk heads of the world a justice by
I like Milksnake Mafia. That's nice.
Everybody.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. So
we really appreciate it.
So if people are interested in the Latin American milk, or just kind of talking Latin America milk with you, how do you recommend they get a hold of you?
They can find me on Facebook, Aaron Beyer, or the kind of business pages by our herpetoculture. And you don't have to be interested in buying anything. If you just want to talk about milks, I honestly love talking about milks. So just shoot me a message and we can go back and forth. Like it's fun. It's a good time.
All right, sweet. Okay, Clint, where do people find you?
If you want to see what we have available, check us out at Metazotics.com. Of course, if you decide to get yourself anything, use coupon code CCRadio at checkout. Save yourself 5%. You can email us at Metazotics@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Metazotics, and on Instagram, MetazoticsLLC.
Awesome. If you are a young person or the parent of a young person and that young person wants to work with snakes, please consider West Liberty University. The zoo sci major is great. The applied conservation major is great. I'm actually driving out to Iowa this Friday to do my third trip of the summer to check in. The students this year, I'm insanely proud of them. They've shown a lot of grit. And we've found a lot of new things people didn't know about hognose snakes or blue racers. The blue racer project is insane. We all knew racers were kind of nutty animals to begin with. If you spent time on the field, come to Colubrid Fest and learn that you were right. These things are just nuts. That's all I have to say. And we're learning that because, you help them out. And and the people doing this are 18, 19, 20, 21, 23, 24 years old. So consider West Liberty University. You can contact me if you're interested in false water cobra. I have a couple copies of the book I just found, and I'd like to move those on false water cobras and all that. Got lots of falsy babies right now. So reach out, Zac Loughman on Facebook, Dr. Crawdad on Instagram, and that's it. So be it morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time of day it is, have a good one. And thank you for joining us on another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.